Ed, so we've heard so much today about how we're seeing the opportunity in the Philippine market. We've heard from central bank governor discussing some of the digital initiatives. Sonny Dominguez, Secretary of Finance, talked a lot about infrastructure and the push by the government to build out on all of this. At the end of the day, we're looking at the capital market, how it can play a bigger role, right? And we touched on this today, the significance of the fact that the index is at a record high. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I know we touched on it a little bit, but what are your thoughts on that? Is that something to be happy or something to be worried?
I guess it depends. I'd like to look at it from a half glass full. So I'm very optimistic. The fact that we've had a record number of IPOs for the last few months, I hope we'll have another at least one or two before the end of the year. I think it's very good. I agreed. It was discussed earlier. The index might seem a little high, but we can deserve the risk premium anyway.
We're talking about 23 times price-earning multiples here, right? And so that's kind of a heady level, isn't it? From your history of investment banking, that's not cheap, right? Yeah. What's driving that 23 times? It's a lot of people talk about lack of liquidity in this market, and they're only concentrated stock trading. Would you agree with that comment?
I guess it's interesting. It's the lack of liquidity in other instruments that's making people invest in the stock market, but it's also the opposite, because there's so much liquidity, they have no place to put their money. That's why they're also
pushing into the stocks, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. When you're looking at a market at that elevated level, do you get more phone calls from potential companies looking to list on the market, right? At 23 times multiple, isn't that very, very attractive?
Yes. Yeah. Strangely, and I'm not saying this because of who I voted for, but with this new administration...
Who did you vote for? Oh, yes, of course, yeah.
No, but with this new administration, there have been many more clients who actually asked us to help them prepare for IPOs. This was even the start of last year, because they felt, rightly or wrongly, or depending, I'm not being political, but they felt that you get a fair shake with this administration, so we might as well go ahead. They felt that, the taxes are going to be collected anyway, so a lot of our clients, or a lot of these these hidden gems have remained hidden because they've managed their profits very well, and then they've tax managed it. But if taxes are really going to be, very efficient, they said we might as well hit the market. So that's why there's this on here.
So you're saying, Ed, you're saying there's less of that underground goings on.
There will be less, I think, going forward. That's why they're encouraged, and that's why more of them will hit the market.
So this year we saw a number of IPOs, mid-sized IPOs and so on. Stephen Tan of Cebu's Landmaster was here as well. Do you sense that this is just the beginning of more IPOs, or do you think, not really? I mean, these companies, you need to still encourage them, tell them that they should try to look at coming to the market.
We still have to encourage them, but even, I guess, my colleagues, my sister company, right, China Bancap, mentioned it. Yeah, there are many companies that are interested. They're less reluctant, let's put it that way. And I'm working on maybe at least 6. And some of them can be an IPO from 1 billion all the way to 3-4 billion, or all the way to around 8 to 10 billion pesos. I have several of them. The only reason we're not able to hit the market now is because of the housekeeping, because it takes a while to restate the financials, to have the new auditor go back for 3 years. But otherwise, there are many who want to top the market.
So when you think about it, what's their biggest worry? What do they worry about when you go to them? You meet all sorts of companies, small, mid-size, hidden gems. When they come to you, Ed, we're looking at the IPO, but what are their concerns?
Okay. No, one is, but is there, of course, because they've never really gone out, how will we be received? Will we get a decent pricing? So that's our role to reassure them, right?
And how do you reassure them, right? Because it's kind of you coming out, right, in the public, and you have to show yourself to the public. Correct. And what if nobody likes me?
Yeah, no. So we really have to reassure them because some are really so reluctant. Some don't want to appear in the newspaper. Some don't want to be quoted. It's as simple as identifying who will be the face of your company, who will appear and to be quoted. We will help you find even basic independent directors. We will help reset the board. We will get you the manuals for all the corporate governance, remuneration, audit. I mean, we can do it parang it's a complete package. Even PR and even
Cookie cutter ba ito? Cookie cutter?
Yeah, meron na rin, yeah.
But, and then you say, okay, what was the Fritz was saying? BDO will find a way, or what did he say?
We will find ways. We will find ways to help the client, and
Oh.
then we will help reassure them. And even if an IR officer or some of them are daunted by the 10-minute rule of the SEC, the PSC, then we will even have lawyers working interim to train them. And then once they're comfortable, then they can do it themselves.
So we're looking at the number of IPOs so far, right? It doesn't seem you're that successful in easing their concern. It seems like, in the case of what you're saying, we should have more IPOs, but we're just having a little bit of IPO, but not a whole lot.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess from our perspective of the 5 or 6 of the IPOs in the Philippines, we've done 5. So from BDO's perspective, I think we're successful.
Yeah. So when you say successful, what's your hit rate in terms of number of companies you approach and number of that you've actually brought to the market?
And no, in general, some of these companies and even my competitors, this is not just something you make a pitch to today and then they'll decide. Yeah. Some of these take years to decide because sometimes some companies we've pitched 3 years ago and then it's just been languishing in their minds, and then only because of the change administration will they reconsider. Or some cases because in the past we presented to the matriarch, and then the patriarch or the matriarch will suddenly be getting ill, and then now saying maybe it's time already we open up. So there
a little bit of succession planning there,
yeah,
right?
A lot is succession planning. Their fear also they want to bring it to the next generation. So it's all of that is taken in consideration.
When I'm listening to Ramon Monzon a while ago, PSE CEO, I don't know if you guys felt it, but I felt like he was really in a difficult job. He was completely negative about what's going on in the market, and I almost wanted to ask him, do you really enjoy your job? Because you've got all these problems that you're facing, right? He mentioned the smallest market in terms of number of listed companies, 269 listed companies. When, from your experience, Ed, and having been in this market for a long time and met all the potential issuers out there, what's the quantum that we're really looking at for the size of this economy? Right now, 269 listed companies.
Okay.
How far can we go with this?
No, that's a good point. When you look at our peers, they're 3 or 4 times our size. Maybe I was actually thinking of that earlier. Roughly, I think a few years back I checked, the number of SEC companies that file are around 600,000. Those are the corporations. So if you just use 1%, diba, that's a reasonable number. 1% of the 600,000 is 6,000. And that sounds right about the number in the other developed countries. So from 269 to 6,000, that's a long way to go. So the potential is there. We just really have to encourage them.
Now, SEC earlier on mentioned that there are a lot of share applications, right? Companies who want to offer shares. When you think about the SEC and you think about the regulators, in terms of encouraging market development, and you were to give them a score of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how would you rate, I'll say regulators, I won't say SEC, how would you rate the regulators?
No, our regulators, I know they're really two, the SEC and the PSE. They're very proactive. They're more proactive now. The challenge really is, it's really also the corporates, if they really want to list. And our dilemma is our 180-day rule or 135-day rule. That's 180 days now. So that's why there's always a bunch of them, every quarter, because they're trying to make sure that their financials don't get stale. And sometimes we just have to bring them out, almost simultaneously. And then in a way, because some of the brokers have limited financing, they get choked up also because they might be the ones with some liquidity issues. So it's really more a question of getting all these corporates or these gems to come out, diba? Because of course we just have to factor in 3 to 4 months of processing.
Yeah,
that's the amount of time it will take the SEC.
Okay, at the end of the day, the issue is we don't have enough listed companies still, right?
Yes.
That's the issue. And when you look at the landscape, regulatory landscape, the banking landscape, capital markets landscape, where do you see improvement most critical?
It's really more a drive from the PSE, I think. Because the SEC, the clients will know what to do anyway. So we just have to work with Monzon and the rest of the board. I guess how much they want new clients to come in. I mean, in fairness to them, Mon made a great presentation on the PPP, for renewables, they have these special guidelines, except nobody has really come out and used those, right? And then the REITs, they wanted to push, but there's a tax issue. I guess the next issue really will be the smaller corporates, the second board. There not been many takers of that. Maybe the question really there is, sometimes I think where the problem might be more with us, in fairness. Because if the same amount of work is required for a 10 billion IPO and for a 50 million IPO, or let's say SME, why will we do the smaller one? Parang the amount of work. And then if they're not going to pay us the amount of effort needed, we're not in that much, in the mood to work for them, even if we want to. Because the challenge is, and I guess this audience is more the banker side. We're more the sell side naman than or buy and sell side, but we're not the corporates. You don't look like the corporates. The challenge with the smaller companies, they're the ones who don't know how to fill a prospectus. They haven't written their strategy, their mission. Versus the big corporates, it's so easy because it's all ready already. They have the template already, so we're just cutting and pasting, and easy to prepare the prospectus.